Did you know that choosing the right plants for your garden's climate can make or break your gardening success? Yes, climate-smart gardening isn't just a buzzword, it's an art. An art that combines knowledge of your local climate with the understanding of plant growth and their compatibility with various weather conditions. So, what is climate-smart gardening? It's about being aware and making gardening choices that are in harmony with the climate of your region. It's about understanding that not every plant can thrive in every climate, and that the success of your garden is largely determined by how well you match your plants to your local weather conditions. Now you may wonder, what are these climate zones? Well, climate zones are geographical areas defined by their general climatic conditions, such as temperature, humidity, and rainfall. They provide a useful guide for gardeners to understand which plants are most likely to thrive in their area. For example, a plant that thrives in the warm, sunny climate of Southern California might struggle in the cooler, wetter conditions of the Pacific Northwest. On the other hand, a plant that loves cool, damp conditions might not do so well in a hot, dry desert climate. So, how do you get to know your climate? It's not as complicated as it sounds. You can start by observing your local weather patterns over a year, noting the changes in temperature and rainfall. You can also refer to climate zone maps, which provide a rough guide to the different climate zones around the world. Understanding your local climate is essential for a flourishing garden. It's like knowing the rules of a game. Once you know the rules, you can play the game well. In this case, the game is gardening, and the rules are dictated by your local climate. Remember, every plant has its preferred climate, and part of the art of climate-smart gardening is understanding these preferences and choosing plants that will thrive in your particular climate zone. So, knowing your climate is the first step to becoming a successful gardener. But how do you choose the right plants? Stay tuned to find out more about this exciting journey into the world of climate-smart gardening. So, how do you get to know your garden's climate? It's simpler than you might think. Your garden's climate is the sum of all weather conditions that typically occur in your location. It's a combination of temperature, precipitation, and seasonal changes that dictate what plants will thrive and what won't. To start, let's talk about temperature zones. These are geographical areas defined by average minimum temperatures. They range from tropical, where temperatures are high year-round, to polar, where freezing temperatures are the norm. You might live in a temperate zone with warm summers and cool winters, or a continental zone characterized by hot summers and cold winters. Identifying your temperature zone is the first step in understanding your garden's climate. Next, consider precipitation levels. This is the amount of rainfall or snowfall your area receives annually. Some gardens are in arid zones, receiving little to no rainfall, while others are in rainforest zones, where rainfall is abundant. Knowing your precipitation level helps determine whether you should opt for drought-tolerant plants or those that love a lot of moisture. Now let's not forget about seasonal changes. These are the shifts in weather patterns throughout the year. Some areas have 4 distinct seasons, while others might only have 2. Seasonal changes affect when plants grow, flower, and go dormant. So, it's crucial to understand the rhythm of your garden's seasons. So, where do you find all this information? Thankfully, there are plenty of resources available. The U.S. Department of Agriculture has a plant hardiness zone map that provides temperature zone information. For precipitation levels, the National Weather Service's Climate Prediction Center is a valuable tool. And for understanding seasonal changes, your local extension service can offer personalized advice based on your specific region. Knowing your climate zone is the key to unlocking your garden's potential. But how do you match this with the right plants? Don't worry, we'll delve into that in our next scene. Understanding your garden's climate is just the beginning of this exciting journey into climate-smart gardening. Every plant has its preferred climate, so how do we make a perfect match? Well, it's a bit like playing matchmaker really, and the first thing we need to consider is the climate zone. These zones are mapped out by organizations like the USDA, and they're based on the average minimum winter temperature. Plants are rated for their hardiness, their ability to withstand cold, according to these zones. So if you live in Zone 5, you'll want to choose plants that are hardy to Zone 5 or lower. But it's not just about winter lows. Some plants need a certain amount of heat to thrive. That's why we also have heat zone maps. These zones are based on the average number of days each year that a region experiences heat over 86 degrees Fahrenheit. So if you're in a hotter climate, you'll want to look for plants that have a high heat tolerance. Water needs are another crucial factor. Some plants are drought tolerant, meaning they can survive with little water, while others require regular watering. Plants native to your area will likely be well adapted to the local rainfall patterns and may require less supplemental watering. Now, let's talk about some common plant types for different climates. For colder climates, consider plants like the sturdy spruce or the colorful rhododendron. They're hardy and can withstand the chill. For hotter climates, cacti and succulents are your best friends. They're built to survive the heat and don't need much water. And for those in between, think about deciduous trees like oaks and maples, or flowering plants like roses and daisies. Remember, it's all about finding the right plant for the right place. It might take some trial and error, but there's a plant out there for every garden, no matter the climate. Matching plants to your climate is like arranging a good marriage, but what common mistakes should you avoid? Well, that's a tale for another scene. Stay tuned. Even the best gardeners make mistakes. So, what are the common pitfalls in climate-smart gardening? One of the most common mistakes is the allure of exotic plants. We've all been there, mesmerized by the unique charm of a plant that's not native to our region. But here's the catch. These plants have specific climate needs that might not align with your garden's climate. It's like asking a polar bear to sunbathe in the Sahara. So before you bring that exotic beauty home, do a quick check. Will it thrive in your climate, or will it struggle and eventually wilt? Now let's talk about microclimates. It's a fancy word that simply means the climate of a very small or restricted area, like your garden. It might be hard to believe, but the climate within your garden can vary significantly. The shady corner might be cooler, while the patch next to the wall could be warmer. Overlooking these microclimates is another common mistake. Remember, each plant has its comfort zone, so consider the microclimates in your garden when choosing where to plant. Lastly, ignoring seasonal changes is like ignoring the elephant in the room. Your garden's climate isn't static, it changes with the seasons. Some plants, like the vibrant chrysanthemum, love the cool, crisp fall air, while others, like the sun-loving marigold, thrive in the heat of summer. If you're not considering these seasonal changes, you're setting yourself up for disappointment. So how can you avoid these mistakes? The answer is research. Understand the climate needs of the plants you're considering. Take note of the microclimates in your garden. And remember, seasons change, so choose plants that can thrive in the changing conditions. Avoiding these mistakes can save you time, money, and a lot of heartache. But what do the experts say about climate-smart gardening? What do the experts have to say about climate-smart gardening? Let's find out. The world of gardening is vast and varied, and every horticultural expert has their unique tips and tricks. But when it comes to climate-smart gardening, there are a few common threads that weave through most expert advice. Firstly, keeping a close eye on local weather patterns is key. Not just the broad strokes, like knowing your area's average rainfall and temperatures, but also the smaller details. Understanding the timing of the first and last frost, the direction of prevailing winds, or the hottest and coldest spots in your garden can make a significant difference in what you plant and where. It's all about being in tune with your environment. Next, experts often recommend turning to native plants. These are plants that have evolved over thousands of years to thrive in your specific local climate. They are generally more resilient to local pests and diseases and require less water and maintenance than exotic or non-native species. Plus, they often provide essential habitats for local wildlife, making your garden a mini nature reserve. Another crucial tip is to embrace the changing climate, not fight against it. This might mean adjusting your gardening practices as your local climate shifts. For instance, if your area is becoming drier, consider incorporating more drought-resistant plants and using water-saving techniques like mulching and rainwater harvesting. Finally, don't be afraid to experiment and learn from your mistakes. Even the most experienced gardeners don't get it right every time. It's through trial and error, observation, and adaptation that we truly grow as gardeners. And remember, gardening is not a race or a competition. It's a journey, one that should be savored and enjoyed. With these expert tips, you're well on your way to becoming a climate-smart gardener. Remember, the right plants in the right climate make for a happy, thriving garden.